Hello, it's been a while, hasn't it, people? It has been 2 months since the last NR 2003 race was contested here on this YouTube channel, but we are back, refreshed, revamped, and we're ready to go. This week is Daytona Speedweek on Thanksgiving week, and we are kicking off Daytona Speedweek with the Budweiser Shootout at Daytona International Speedway. Hi, I'm Levi McIntyre, the voice of not only the Marvel Studios Cup Series, but also the Domino's NXT Series and the Amazon Prime Truck Series, all represented by the NNSCRA. But before we get into the starting lineup for tonight's Budweiser Shootout, we have got to talk about a few things for this season in particular. So, we are doing 3 series. Now, the schedules are going to go as followed. Marvel Studios Cup Series will still be the full 36 season. Or 36 race season, I meant to say. Domino's NXT will be 20 races. Amazon Prime Truck Series will be 14. So that is going to be how the schedule is going to be for each of the 3 series this time around. Now, as far as Daytona Speedweek is concerned, today, which is Monday, will be the Budweiser Shootout. Tomorrow on Tuesday will be Daytona 500 qualifying. Wednesday will be the Budweiser Duels, where we determine the rest of the starting lineup for the Daytona 500. Thursday will be Daytona 500 final practice. Friday is going to be huge because we're going to have 3 races in one day. First is going to be the Amazon Prime Truck Series event at noon Eastern Time. Then at 3 p.m. Eastern Time will be the Domino's NXT race. And then at 6 o'clock Eastern Time will be the Daytona 500. So we've got a huge week ahead of us for Daytona Speedweek. But without further ado, we've got the Budweiser Shootout. It's only 15 drivers contested of people who got poles from last season, previous Bud Shootout winners, and previous series champions. So it's a small field, 15 laps though, but I still feel like they're going to go balls to the wall, hard and heavy with the race cars, and we're going to have some fun with this. But the Budweiser Shootout starting lineup, front row is Joshua Sekuli, our season champion from Season 4, the defending series champion, next to Rafael Leduc. Row 2 is Jake Baskinger and Dougie Shears. Row 3, Dylan Jacobs, DJ Curtis. Row 4, Jessica Sheldon, Matt McIntyre. Row 5, Trent Dunham, James Qualls. Row 6, Carson Gum, Jay Jefferson. Row 7 is Seth Cole and Dylan Young, and then starting last is Kyle Matthews. Top 5 is all Toyotas, so this is going to be an interesting event to say at the very least. But without further ado, let's get the command to fire engines.
Drivers, start your engines!
All 15 cars rolling out on the racetrack for their one pace lap around here. So this race could potentially set the tone for the rest of the events of Daytona Speedweek to come, because depending on how hard these drivers are going to race, might determine the mood for the remaining events of the week. Now, of course, when we get to those other events this week, we're going to have a much bigger field. For Marvel Studios Cup, it's going to be 40 drivers as opposed to 42. And then the Domino's NXT and Amazon Prime Truck Series are only going to have 30. So it's a total of 100 drivers for this time period of this channel for NR 2003 NNSCRA events. Now, some of the stories heading into this season, Joshua Sekuli moved from the 82 Toyota from Red Bull Racing to go back to the number 11 FedEx Express Toyota for Joe Gibbs Racing, and he is the defending series champion, so we're going to keep an eye on him for a good portion of the season. Other drivers to look after, Jake Baskinger, who did unfortunately struggle last season to try and get to the top 30 in the point standings, but since we're not doing that anymore, we're going to keep an eye on him this season because he showed he had a lot of speed back in Season 4. Kyle Matthews, another one that is going to have a lot of speed this season, perhaps, if he can keep that luck he had from Season 4 going. Pace car in the pit road, so you know what time it is? For the first time in 2 months, it's time to boogity, 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 and go racing. Well, Joshua Sekuli, the pole sitter, led lap number 1, as meanwhile behind him, battle going on for second, Jessica Shelton, who was pushing Dylan Jacobs up there, but ends up leaving him hanging to dry and forced to the outside, has the second spot for now, but she's going to have the inside all to herself as she's getting help from Trent Dunham. Well, when I meant all by herself, meaning up at the front by herself. But nonetheless, Jessica Shelton's got that big run, and with the help of Trent Dunham, she will take the race lead here in the Budweiser Shootout. Now, keep in mind, this is a non-points event, but it does help to set the tone for the remainder of the week. And by the time we get to Thursday... Actually, no, I changed my mind. Friday is not going to be the day we're going to see all the action. Instead, it'll be on Thanksgiving Day itself where we're going to have all 3 races, just to really amp up Thanksgiving, and I would hope people would rather watch this than football. Nonetheless, Carson Gum now has the race lead. Meanwhile, behind him, Seth Cole for Backmarker Motorsports, still keeping that team going with James Shelley still in their close affiliation with Furniture Row Racing, who in fact have shrunk down to just a 3-car operation this season. And in fact, all 3 of those cars are in this race. Raphael Leduc, Dylan Jacobs, and Jay Jefferson. But Seth Cole has the spot for now, but Kyle Matthews, who started in 15th, already up here to 2nd. A couple of the guys I've seen back there who've not really moved up hardly at all, as we're going to go to helicopter view for the best angles. Dylan Young, who's a 2-time winner of the Budweiser Shootout in this series. In fact, he won the first 2 Budweiser Shootouts we've ever done for the Marvel Studios Cup Series, back for prior to Season 2 and Season 3. The defending Budweiser Shootout winner, Dougie Shears, in the number 83 car, he's back here. James Quall's only now starting to kind of move up a little bit, but he's been stuck in the middle in a 3-wide situation pretty much throughout much of the first couple of laps of the race, and now he's just still stuck in the middle. As meanwhile, Jake Baskinger's by his lonesome right now in 15th. But Kyle Matthews currently hanging on to the race lead as they continue to battle right behind him. Carson Gum has 2nd for now, but Seth Cole right there next to him. Dylan Jacobs, who did fall to the back for a moment, he's making a comeback and once again has Jessica Shelton right behind him, pushing him. Jessica Shelton, the owner of Retro Racing Enterprises, has 2 of her 4 drivers in this series, or not in this series, in this race, James Qualls and Kyle Matthews, and including her, that's 3 of 4 drivers for that team. The only one missing is Charles Sanford, because unfortunately he did not get a pole last season. And also, speaking of poles are going to mean a whole lot more this season, because with the new updated point system we're going to have for this season, you get 2 bonus points if you get the pole in a race. So that is going to be very, very, very important. Back up here at the front, however, it looks like we're going to have a lead change as Dylan Jacobs takes the lead away from Kyle Matthews, as Jessica Shelton's been glued to that back bumper for a couple laps, but now separates off. But will Shelton have a run to the inside going into turn 3? Nope. Dylan Jacobs slams the door on her. Meanwhile, James Qualls, I don't know how he's managing to keep his car up here close to the front while being in a 3-wide situation. It's just really, really interesting how this is the case. But nonetheless, Dougie Shears, who was in the back for a good portion of the beginning of the race, he's now starting to work his way up here, the defending winner of the Budweiser Shootout, up here now to 3rd, trying to take that spot away from Kyle Matthews. Meanwhile, looks like we're going to have a potential lead change, as here comes Jessica Shelton with a run to the inside of Dylan Jacobs. And I saw Seth Cole run Rafael LeDuc way up the racetrack, almost like they made contact together. But they keep it straight, no crash. But these guys are racing each other very, very well, but very, very clean, which is what I like to see out of Daytona racing, or play racing in general. But meanwhile, as I spoke about Dougie Shears earlier, he's now about to take the lead. Could he be the second person in the history of the Marvel Studios Cup Series to go 2 in a row in the Budweiser Shootout? But he's about to get challenged by Jake Baskinger, and look at James Qualls. I kept talking about how he was just stuck in the middle of 3 wide all race long. He's now finally getting to try and challenge for the lead, as Baskinger moves up high, and Qualls almost let Jay Jefferson in on the inside as he's getting help from affiliate teammate Seth Cole behind him. But now James Qualls is taking the race lead over here in the Budweiser Shootout, and I thought I saw a car straggling in the back, but I guess I was just seeing stuff. But James Qualls now has a bit of a gap between himself and the rest of the pack, which isn't really a good thing because of that draft effect. And here comes Trent Dunham with help from Matt McIntyre, who we haven't really talked about all night. Matt McIntyre returning to that number 32 Tide Dodge. Rafael LeDuc behind him, giving him a push. And look at those 4 cars stuck in the middle. Seth Cole, Kyle Matthews, DJ Curtis, Dougie Shears. And DJ Curtis is another guy we've really rarely talked about tonight, but he's just kind of been in the middle pretty much all race long, as we're less than 5 laps to go here in this non-points event. As meanwhile, James Qualls still having a bit of a gap between himself and second place. As speaking of second, that's about to be a 3-wide fight between Carson Gum, Rafael LeDuc, and Matt McIntyre. And Carson Gum's going to get the advantage of being on the inside, the shorter way around. Meanwhile, it's 3 wide throughout the rest of the field behind second place right now. Jessica Shelton, however, trying to lead the charge on the inside, as DJ Curtis right behind her to try and give her a boost. But Carson Gum's now onto the back bumper of James Qualls. James Qualls last season in Season 3 had a pretty solid Season 4, had a pretty solid Season 4. 2 wins, made the chase, finished 9th in points, but he definitely wants to go further with this. But now Carson Gum has the race lead, but he might have just left the bottom open too long, as here comes Shelton trying to retake that spot. James Qualls' teammate. DJ Curtis, who, like I said, we've rarely talked about all night, he's now up here in the mix. And look at Dylan Jacobs, who had fallen to the back again. He's up here 3rd on the inside lane. And now he's going to try and give a push to DJ Curtis as Shelton moved up high to block Carson Gum. But Jacobs left that bottom open as Baskinger's now into the fray. Meanwhile, battle for the lead. DJ Curtis with that run on the inside of Jessica Shelton as we're coming to 2 laps to go here in the Budweiser Shootout. And it's 3 wide for quite a few rows. Dylan Young's the only one missing out on the action. He's still kind of by himself. Meanwhile, it's still 3 wide, and Jake Baskinger now takes the race lead over. Seth Cole, though, right behind him. Trent Dunham, who we haven't talked about much all night. Same with Jay Jefferson. They're still trying to work together to try and get that bottom line going. But Trent goes up to the middle to block the 78, but that left room for... Oh, some contact! Oh my goodness, how did they keep that together? Contact between Trent Dunham and Jay Jefferson, and I thought we were going to have a big crash, but they kept it together as the white flag is displayed. That was amazing driving on the part of Trent Dunham and Jay Jefferson, as well as everyone else who somehow managed to avoid them, but that did separate the pack, and it's all from Jake Baskinger back to Dylan Jacobs. Everyone else is back here in the second group, but Baskinger's still hanging on. Nobody's really coming down to try and make a move. Jessica Shelton tried, but DJ Curtis blocked her. DJ's going to have only 1 shot off of turn 4, otherwise the day is done. Will he go to the bottom? No, Shelton goes to the bottom, but it doesn't matter. Checkered flag is waving. Jake Baskinger wins the Budweiser Shootout at Daytona. After a slightly dramatic final lap when we almost had a wreck with 1 1/4 to go, Jake Baskinger, I mentioned it, you want to keep an eye on him this season because he's got a lot of speed in that 18 Toyota, and he proved it, and he wins the Budweiser Shootout to get some momentum going forward for Daytona Speedweek. But let's look at the rest of the results. DJ Curtis, man, if only he would have went to the bottom off of turn number 4, or even in turn 3, I think he would have had a chance. But he still comes through with the second place run. Jessica Shelton, solid performance in 3rd. James Qualls came back from being stuck in the middle for so long, finishing out in 4th. And then Dylan Jacobs finishes 5th. And then the rest of the top 10, Carson Gum, Seth Cole, Matt McIntyre, Jay Jefferson, Rafael LeDuc. And then the rest of the field that finished was Joshua Zakuli, Trent Dunham, Dougie Shears, Kyle Matthews, and Dylan Young. Well, that does it for our coverage today in the Budweiser Shootout. Thank you so much for tuning in, but stick around for tomorrow because tomorrow is Daytona 500 qualifying.